Stop shrinking yourself to fit. At some point in life, almost everyone learns, even without realizing it, to make themselves smaller in order not to bother others, to lower their voice, their light, their dreams, to trade their own essence for acceptance. And the problem is not wanting to belong. The problem begins when, in order to belong, you practice self-abandonment and call it maturity. Personal growth has never been about becoming someone more acceptable. It has always been about reclaiming the authenticity you left behind along the way. Maybe you've already felt this. The more you grow, the more discomfort you create in certain environments. People who once felt comfortable around you start to feel uneasy. And then the temptation appears to go back, to shrink your potential, to tolerate what hurts, just to keep misaligned relationships alive. But every time you do this, your self-worth sends you the bill. Resentment grows, self-love weakens, and self-valuation is pushed into the background. The good news is this: there's another path, a path where boundaries do not push away what truly matters, where saying no becomes an act of expansion, and where valuing yourself is not arrogance, it is emotional survival. Throughout this content, you will realize that real progress requires detachment, clarity, and the courage to lose what was never aligned with who you are becoming. And believe this, when you stop shrinking yourself to fit, life begins to adjust to your true size. Personal growth begins by letting go, not by adding more. There's an idea heavily sold out there that personal growth is always about accumulation. More courses, more habits, more titles, more versions of yourself. But the truth is that real expansion begins when you let go of what no longer matches your essence. Old beliefs, patterns of self-abandonment, misaligned relationships, even expectations that were never truly yours. Self-valuation is not about adding weight to life. It is about removing what makes you walk bent over. In practice, this can start simply. Observe what drains your energy. Conversations that turn into competition. Commitments made out of guilt. Excessive tolerance toward disrespect. Growth is realizing that maintaining all of this is expensive for your self-esteem. A powerful exercise is this. At the end of the day, write down what you did out of obligation and what you did by choice. This contrast reveals exactly where personal growth is asking for detachment. Even in reading, this truth appears. Books like The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz show that progress is not about becoming someone new. It is about stopping the betrayal of yourself. When you release what is misaligned, self-love finally has room to breathe. And interestingly, the more excess you let go of, the more your potential shows up. Not through effort, but through coherence with who you truly are. Anything that makes you smaller devalues you. Every time you shrink yourself to avoid conflict, rejection, or judgment, something inside you notices. It may not be immediate, but your self-esteem records it. Accepting less than you deserve. Silencing your opinion. Pretending that something did not hurt. These are subtle and dangerous forms of self-abandonment. Self-valuation begins when you understand that you do not need to disappear to keep the peace. Peace built this way charges interest in the form of resentment. In real life, this shows up in small phrases. Let go. It is nothing. I will adapt. But constant adaptation turns into shrinking. A powerful self-love practice is to review your boundaries and ask yourself one question. Would I do this if I were respecting myself? If the answer is no, it might not be tolerance. It might be fear of losing approval. And losing yourself is never worth that price. The more you honor your essence, the clearer it becomes what devalues you. Environments where you must constantly justify yourself. Relationships that mock your progress or diminish your growth. These are not neutral. They drain your potential. When you stop shrinking yourself, something interesting happens. The world reorganizes itself. And this prepares you to understand who is truly able to walk beside you. People who cannot handle your growth are not for you. Not everyone who starts walking with you will be able to keep up with your personal growth. And this is not arrogance. It is reality. When you expand, change your mindset, strengthen your self-esteem, and begin setting boundaries, some people feel threatened. Not because you are wrong, but because your progress exposes the place where they chose to remain. This is when irony appears. Criticism disguised as concern, an uncomfortable tension in the air. In practice, observe who reacts poorly to your achievements or tries to minimize your progress. Sometimes it is not a direct attack. It is an awkward silence. A subject changed too quickly. A joke made at the wrong time. This creates confusion and even resentment, especially when it comes from someone close. Emotional maturity is understanding that aligned relationships do not require you to shrink your potential to maintain someone else's comfort. Growth also requires detachment, letting go of the need to be understood by everyone, accepting that some connections belong to older versions of you. When you honor your essence, you naturally move closer to those who resonate with the same expansion. And this opens space to recognize who truly knows how to walk with you and celebrate that. A true friend celebrates your wins. A true friend does not compete with your personal growth. They celebrate it with you. When you grow, value yourself, and access more of your potential, this kind of friendship does not feel diminished. It feels inspired. Celebrating someone else's success is a sign of healthy self-esteem and aligned connection. There is no room for envy disguised as jokes or uncomfortable silence. In practice, observe how people react when you share something good. A true friend asks questions, shows genuine interest, celebrates without irony. Misaligned relationships tend to minimize, change the subject, or bring the focus back to themselves. This does not mean someone is a bad person. They may simply be stuck in resentment or constant comparison. And comparison is one of the greatest blocks to self-love. Keeping close those who genuinely root for you is a deep act of self-valuation. It is choosing environments that expand you, not shrink you. When you allow yourself to walk with people who recognize your essence, your confidence grows naturally. And this clarity reveals something important. You teach others how to treat you by what you accept or no longer tolerate. You teach others how to treat you by what you tolerate. People learn very quickly how far they can go with you. Every boundary not set, every disrespect tolerated, every silence swallowed. All of this becomes an invisible manual on how to treat you. At first, it seems small. Over time, it directly affects your self-esteem and builds silent resentment. Unconscious tolerance is not virtue. It is self-abandonment in disguise. In practice, notice repeating patterns. Someone always shows up late with you, interrupts when you speak, minimizes your feelings. This continues because at some level it was allowed. Setting boundaries is not being rigid. It is being clear. A simple exercise is choosing one situation per week where you will position yourself with respect and firmness even if your stomach tightens. When you change your behavior, you change the agreement. Some people adjust, others step away. Both responses are valuable information. Self-valuation is understanding that aligned relationships respect your essence without negotiation. And when you stop tolerating what diminishes you, you realize something important. Shrinking yourself to fit was never a solution. It was only a delay. Shrinking yourself to fit is self-abandonment. Every time you make yourself smaller to be accepted, part of your essence is left behind. A dream you stop mentioning, an opinion you swallow, a boundary you let slide. In the short term, this may seem to make relationships easier. In the long term, it costs your self-esteem dearly. Self-abandonment does not happen all at once. It is built through small, daily concessions. In practice, notice where you change your behavior depending on who is around. Do you speak less? Laugh at what hurts you? Agree just to avoid discomfort? These are clear signs that you are drifting away from your own center. A powerful question to ask before making any decision is this: does this expand me, or does it shrink me? This simple question brings deep clarity. When you choose to stop shrinking yourself, something shifts internally. Self-love begins to take up space, and with it comes the courage to sustain who you truly are. Some relationships will not survive this, and that is okay, because when you honor your authenticity, it becomes impossible to remain in environments that require you to disappear in order to belong. Environments and relationships should expand you, not shrink you. A simple way to measure alignment is this. After being in this environment or relationship, do you feel bigger or smaller? The right spaces activate your potential, encourage your growth, and strengthen your self-esteem. The wrong ones demand constant adaptation, strategic silence, and a tolerance that exhausts the soul. Expansion is never accompanied by fear of being yourself. In practice, look at the spaces you frequent. Work, friendships, family, social media. Do you feel safe to speak, create, make mistakes, and learn? Or are you constantly self-monitoring to avoid discomfort? Healthy environments do not demand perfection. They value authenticity. A direct exercise is to slowly reduce the time spent where you need to shrink yourself to fit. When you choose aligned relationships, your energy changes. Progress flows with less resistance. Self-love strengthens. Resentment loses space. The right environments do not drain you. They propel your expansion. And this clarity leads to another essential lesson. Understanding that saying no is also part of growth. Saying no is an act of self-love. Many people confuse saying no with rejecting others. In reality, it is a clear way of not rejecting yourself. Every time you say yes to something that violates your limits, you practice self-abandonment. Self-love is not treating yourself well only when time allows. It is respecting yourself even when discomfort arises. And yes, in the beginning, saying no tightens the throat. Start small. There is no need to become inflexible overnight. Decline an invitation when you are exhausted. Refuse a task that is not yours. Simply say, "I cannot right now." Notice how your body reacts when you respect yourself. There is usually immediate relief, followed by guilt. This is normal when you have spent a long time prioritizing others. Over time, saying no becomes a natural filter. Aligned relationships understand, respect, and even admire your boundaries. Those who are bothered by your no were likely benefiting from your automatic yes. As you strengthen this muscle, your self-esteem grows. Your essence remains intact, and you realize that self-love does not push away what is real. It only reveals it. Keeping your word to yourself is self-esteem in action. There's a quiet confidence that grows when you do what you promise yourself you would do. It is not about big goals. It is about daily coherence. Every time you break a promise to yourself, your self-esteem feels it. Keeping your word is a direct act of self-valuation. It shows that you can trust who you are. Start with small, realistic commitments. Read 10 pages a day. Walk 3 times a week. Leave a conversation when it crosses a line. Avoid grand promises. Real progress is built through simplicity. A helpful reference here is The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, which shows how consistency outperforms motivation. When you honor yourself, your relationship with yourself changes. Self-love stops being theory and becomes experience. And something interesting happens. Others begin to take you more seriously. Because someone who respects themselves communicates that without saying a word. This internal coherence prepares the ground for the final truth of this expansion process. When you value yourself, you only lose what is not aligned. There is a common fear that self-valuation will push people away. This is true, but only partially. When you strengthen your self-esteem, set boundaries, and honor your essence, some relationships do fall away. Not because you became difficult, but because you stopped accepting what you once tolerated. And losing what is misaligned is not loss. It is space being cleared. In practice, this happens when you stop over-explaining, negotiating your values, or shrinking yourself to maintain connections. Some people leave quietly. Others question your change. This moment may bring guilt. But remember this. Personal growth does not coexist with self-abandonment. Aligned relationships never require you to betray yourself in order to stay. When you value yourself, your energy shifts. Your choices become clearer. Your potential expresses itself with less effort. Detachment transforms from pain into maturity. And then you understand something essential. Everything that leaves opens space. Space for environments that expand you. Connections that respect your boundaries. Relationships where you can be whole without fitting into old molds. Along this path, one truth becomes clear. Growth is not comfortable, but it is liberating. Self-valuation requires courage. Courage to step out of autopilot, to revisit old tolerances, to abandon versions of yourself that no longer fit. Self-love does not appear overnight. It is built when you repeatedly choose to respect your essence, even when it costs relationships, environments, or habits. Now reflect. Where are you still shrinking yourself to fit? Which boundaries do you know you need to set but keep postponing? What would change in your life if you stopped negotiating your self-worth? Personal growth begins when you choose to act differently, even with fear, even without immediate applause. Real progress is quiet, but it transforms everything around you. If this content resonated with you, do not let it stop here. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and keep walking with me on this journey of expansion, authenticity, and alignment with who you truly are. There is much more coming, and you do not have to walk this path alone.